What I want to demonstrate for you guys in this video is how much difference music can make in a scene. One of the many things I do in my life as a part of my career is I will occasionally score films. It always tends to be short films or indie films, nothing major, nothing big, nothing you would have heard of. But it is something that's been on my mind lately. To that end, I have a scene that I'm going to show you, something I shot myself. The first time we see it, it'll be without music at all, just so you can see what the video looks like. And then we'll start to add different tracks. I have composed 3 different tracks. I've tried to make them as different as I possibly can to fit different genres. Before we get into it though, I want to quickly say this is a scene that I shot myself because I didn't want to use somebody else's work. Firstly, I don't want to get copyright claimed, but also I want to throw shade on someone else's work. I mean, I could have used a scene like from a Warner Bros. Movie, you know, or a Christopher Nolan movie or something, but who do I think I am that I could possibly presume to do a better job than somebody like Hans Zimmer or John Williams? It's just easier to film something myself. That being said, please don't judge me too harshly on my cinematography. I am not a filmmaker. That's not what I do for a living. I'm a musician. I score films occasionally. I compose, I do session work, but I'm not a filmmaker. Bear that in mind when you watch this. So that being said, let's cut to the clip and then we'll talk about it. What you just saw was a clip comprised of 9 shots, some inserts, some of me driving. The idea is that the scene is something that is very commonplace. You'd see it in almost any film that you watch. You're likely to have a scene of someone jumping in a car and driving off. So we have something that's very commonplace. Another part of the reason I chose to do that was because that'll work across genres. I mean, that scene by itself is difficult to really figure what kind of genre that scene might have come from. It kind of fits into comedy, horror, action, adventure, most things, right? Even dramas. And the idea is to try use music to sort of help us gauge what the genre is, which is what we're going to be doing. Excuse the white box, by the way. I'm terrible at CG and stuff. I've never done this type of thing before. It was just easier to do that than to blur out another place. That being said, the first clip that you're about to see is piano music. Now, this is meant to be gentle. The thinking for me is something out of a romance movie or perhaps a drama movie, but it's basically the character I'm playing is either finally got the guts to go and do the thing he always wanted to do. So it's me jumping in the car and, you know, chasing after my dreams kind of a thing. Or in the case of a romance movie, the girl I love is about to get away. She's at the airport waiting and I'm chasing after her. That's the sort of thinking. So let's have a look at that clip and then we'll discuss a little bit more about it. I think that sounds pretty. I quite like how that came out. It's just piano by itself. There's nothing added to it. If this was for a genuine film, I would probably have added a little bit of strings just to give it a bit more feels. But other than that, it's literally just a piano and a high register. The idea is to invoke happiness and sort of excitement, but not like in a sort of sensitive way, right? My thinking being that this is the start of the sequence of our character rushing to wherever they are going to. So there's still going to be a scene of him racing through traffic and running through the mall or wherever he's going to. And it's in those scenes that we can build up the sound a lot more. We'll bring in the rest of the orchestra and stuff. But for now, this is the beginning of that final journey. All right, this is definitely third act stuff. That is what I hope I managed to achieve with this. Part of the reason I chose this particular theme, this like I said, this is kind of romance, but also you can score a scene with just one instrument. We don't have to use the entire orchestra. You know, sometimes you don't need 50, 40, 80, 100 instruments scoring a scene. There are cases where you want a full orchestra, but sometimes even in a scene like this, which in a different movie could be considered an action scene, can be gentle. You can make it work. That being said, let's move on to the next example. So this is an example of hiring or paying for the use of a pop song from a band, you know, a Miley Cyrus song, a Beatles song, whichever band works. Because the idea is this is almost like a modern, not necessarily modern, but a pop song, right? And kind of a rock feel to it. This to me is action comedy, is the genre that I was kind of going for. This is the point in the film. You could either put this sort of first act, like a sort of an introduction scene for my character. He's late for something, or you could make it at the third act. I'm not sure the music fits. It would need to be bigger than this. But yeah, it's an action comedy type of thing. Normally you'd hire a band and record the thing like that. I actually played all of the the drums and the guitar in that. If this was for an actual movie, I'd have added in a bass drum track also. But yeah, this is how we would use a live, not a live band, but a band. Not much more to say about this really. I will say that I can actually put it into this section because otherwise it'll be really short. This is a 35-second scene, which is not easy to score, being that short. You don't have time to build anything up. To build tension or anything like that, you got to move fast with your the way that you're planning out where the song is going to go. But we'll talk more about that at the end. Let's move on to the third and final example. Alright, this one I definitely have a lot to say about. Firstly, this is sort of a horror, thriller, suspense type of situation. Maybe it's a serial killer and we finally have a good lead. So I'm racing out to a crime scene or to try and catch this guy. It could be a horror. I've just found out that someone I care about is in danger and I'm chasing after them. There's a few different scenarios, but the idea with the music was to build tension. Now again, you only have 35 seconds. It's difficult to do. So we start out with just strings, by themselves, and in this case it was double bass, it was cello and viola, and the main purpose of the string section in this case is to build rhythm. Well, is for rhythm. Okay. When the woodwinds come in at about I think it's about the fourth bar, they are responsible for adding that uneasy feeling, because the point was that they are actually playing in a different key. They are playing in a key that creates dissonance, uncomfortableness. All right, but there's a dissonance going on between what the woodwind section is playing and the strings are playing. And it's on top of that, your strings are playing. Oh yeah, the rhythm in the string section is an uneven rhythm, right? If you listen carefully to what the double bass is doing and what the cellos are doing, they're not quite matched. They are technically matched, but the cellos are doing almost kind of like triplets. For lack of I'm trying not to go too technical to music theory. The timing makes you feel uneasy. The dissonance makes you feel uneasy. And then in the last couple of bars, we bring in the brass section, and just to give it a little bit more tension. It's another level of dissonance going on there. The timpani, which is very subtle, gives it just a little bit more oomph. So there's all of these textures going on that I tried to introduce to make this work. I'm not sure what I would do if I had more time, or if this was for an actual film. I might change the start. But yeah, I hope I hope it worked. I hope it made you feel uneasy. That was kind of the point. Anyways, let's move on to the conclusion. There's a couple of things I'd like to mention there. All right, so in conclusion, there's 2 points I'd like to make just before I close this video. Firstly is that this is one 35-second scene, right? It's not the whole film, which means that, of course, we're missing a lot of context. Normally, you would get sent the whole film. The director would communicate with you what they kind of want. You would create something there would be communication, all right, and you would be getting feedback. But the big thing is that there would be the context of scenes surrounding this one scene. I mean, this isn't the start of a movie, it's not the finish of a movie. So normally when I'm creating something, I would have the context of the scene that came before this and the scene that came afterwards. The other thing is that because I usually do short films, I don't always get an opportunity. I mostly don't get an opportunity to work in things like leitmotifs, for instance. You can Google that or go to YouTube and find out about that. So the characters in these films won't necessarily have their own themes. If you want to dig that deeply into things, this is a 35-second clip, and so I'm creating music specifically for that clip. If I had the rest of the film, I would have been able to draw on musical themes and ideas from other scenes, or I could plant a seed, a musical seed in this scene that I would then call back to later on. I could do that also, but again, this is one like 35-second scene. The other thing important to note is beats. Now, when I talk about beats, I'm not talking about that from a musical sense per se. What I mean is that if you go back and watch the scene, there are moments in that sequence where you can that you can tie to musical moments. So as soon as the door opens on my house, and I rush out, that's a beat. All right. When I get to my car door, as soon as my hand touches the car door, that's a beat. I'm inside the car and I put my key into the ignition. As soon as my key touches the ignition, that's a beat. As soon as I turn the car on, that's a beat. As soon as I basically almost every time that we start a new shot could be considered a beat. When I reverse my car, as soon as the car stops, that could be a beat. And then finally, as the scene cuts, because in this case, the sequence cuts to black, that's a beat. Now, in this case, it wasn't filmed with that in mind really, so I couldn't make use of too many of those beats. I did manage to make use of the opening beats as I open the door, and when the scene cuts, fortunately, it just so happened to line up. Sometimes you'll get a filmmaker who will actually have that in mind when they film. There's some famous filmmakers who famously will use a stopwatch to film a scene such that characters are all sort of like, you know, turning at the same time, and they're turning in time with a clock in the background or with music playing. They'll actually film with the soundtrack in mind, and then you get to create something with that in mind, and it can be lots of fun. It can be difficult, challenging, but this scene, of course, wasn't filmed like that, so it becomes very difficult. Unless you want to record live, which I could have done, I suppose. I could have subtly stretched and contracted the music to match with me opening the door and stuff like that, but I chose not to. It's a short enough scene. This is just for my YouTube channel. I'm not that phased. That being said, I really hope this has been useful. I hope you've gotten to see, hopefully the way that the scene felt changed drastically based on the music that was being played. If you want to, feel free to comment down below as to which track you thought was the best, which music you thought was the best, which fitted the scene best. Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.